Welcome. The title of her presentation is AI and Minor Languages. This is yours. Thank you. Gracias.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of CIRCOM for giving me the possibility to present this talk. And special thanks to the Basque broadcaster, EITB, for making it possible for me to be here. So I'm going to be talking about AI and minor languages. What's the situation nowadays? So AI is a broad field that aims to develop systems and technologies that can perform human tasks, okay? And language technologies, also very commonly referred to as natural language processing, are a subfield of that field, of artificial intelligence field. And they are capable of doing tasks, the tasks that we have been seeing today, many of them, right? So things like speech recognition, text classification, doing summaries of text, translating, having chatbots, virtual agents, etc., etc. The focus of my talk is going to be about minor languages, which are languages that are spoken by a small population, but also non-major languages, which are languages that maybe have more speakers, but they may not be dominant, either nationally or globally, or even minority languages, which are maybe spoken by a minority group. All these terms are usually mixed together. Sometimes they can overlap. But in the technological field, all these types of languages are usually referred to as less resourced languages, which are languages that lack technology, language technologies, data, or infrastructure to develop these technologies. So what would you say if I asked you what the current state of language technologies on European languages is? Probably most of you have used ChatGPT on your own language, maybe also in English. And probably most of you have realized that it works very good for English, it works very good for major languages like Spanish, French, German, but maybe some of you have had some problems when you have tried using it with less resourced languages, maybe some minority languages, or even agglutinative languages, languages that have structures that are a bit more complicated or more different from English, which is simpler in that sense, okay? So that's actually what the ELE book is about. Today I'm going to present the results of an analysis that is available in this book. This book is online, it's free, you can download it, you can read it. And this book is the result of an European project called the European Language Equality Project that ran between 2021 and 2023. And it was a response to a resolution of the European Parliament in 2018, which is looking to make sure that language equality is assured in the digital age for all European languages. Okay, that's the aim of the resolution. So the European Parliament is really looking into this. The European Parliament and Europe would like to all its languages to be equal in the digital world. To foster inclusiveness and digital equality of the languages, because there is a risk of digital extinction of some languages. In some countries, young people usually go to the internet and use English to search for information because there is no information in their languages, and that's a threat for those languages in the long term. So the European Parliament, Europe in general, is concerned about this and is trying to foster equality for the rest of the languages, okay? So this book, the European Language Equality book, it has examined that feeling that we have when we use ChatGPT and the other technologies. It has examined it thoroughly. And it has, I will show you the results of that analysis with the conclusions on what is the current state of play of the language technologies for the different European languages. But not only that, it has also outlined what would be the future situation of European languages, and it has also proposed a plan. What should be done? What should be the strategy in research, in innovation, in the implementation of an agenda so that Europe has digital language equality by 2030. So, what are the results of this analysis? In the next slides, I'm going to show you different graphs. Because during the ELE project, the researchers and the partners in the project, they have looked into different data, but all of that data, they actually comes to the same conclusion, which is summarized here. So in this slide, for example, to the right, you can see that they have done an analysis of all the tools and all the services and all the language resources that are available for the different languages in the EU, both at official language level, there are 24 official EU languages, but also to some co-official languages, okay? So what they have found is that the best supported EU language is English, which has good support in terms of tools, services, and resources. Then we have a group of languages, major languages like French, German, and Spanish, which have moderate support, but all other official languages, they have clustered them in fragmentary support. Okay, with the exception of Irish and Maltese, which only have weak or no support of tools, resources, and different tools, resources, and language technologies. We are not only talking about ChatGPT here. We are talking about speech transcription technology, translation, text classification, all the language technologies in general, okay? And in the case of co-official languages, it's also the case. So there are some co-official languages that also have fragmentary support, like Norwegian and Catalan. There are others like Basque, Galician, Icelandic, and Welsh that are borderline cases, and all other co-official languages have very weakly support or they are not supported at all. So this is the current state of play of European languages, according to the ELE results. This is another graph that shows the same results. So you can see that the overall technology support for the European languages, you see that English, German, Spanish, French are at the top, and then the rest of the languages have less support. They have also looked into different type of models. So this graph shows the number of language models available for the different languages. Here as well, you see that English and Spanish are the ones on top. The others have less support. They also looked at multimodal data sets that are available for the different languages. Here they also saw that English and Spanish, French or German are the ones that have more resources, more multimodal data sets. The other languages don't have so many. In terms of human-computer interaction systems, here again, you have German, English, French, the ones that have more of this kind of technology. The other languages have less technology. So most of the different analyses that they run, they come to the same conclusion, right? This is the number of natural language generation systems. Here again, we see that English is the top language that has more of this kind of technology. French, German, Spanish, and the other languages are below. They have also asked language technology developers. They have asked not only have a look at the tools, the services, and the resources that are available, they have also asked the tech companies, the language technology developers, and they have asked them, which languages do you provide? No, in your tools, in your services. And here the result is very similar. You can see that the English, German, Spanish, French, the major languages, there are more systems, more technologies available in the market for those languages. The technology developers address those languages more than the rest of the other EU languages. And this slide summarizes some of the challenges that those language technology developers find or face in their day-to-day. You can see that one of the main problems that they find is that more basic research is needed in order to be able to develop technologies for all the languages in Europe. That sometimes multilinguality is not recognized adequately, that there is high competition with non-European companies and global players that are developing this kind of technologies, and it's hard to compete with them. Also, there's lack of coordination maybe between research, between the technology developers, between the vendors, and that there is a fragmentation of the European language technology industry. There are many small companies targeting maybe local, regional languages that cannot compete to those big players. There's also maybe insufficient markets for some of those languages. Maybe for the big companies, it's not profitable to develop the technologies because the business that they can make with those languages is not good enough, right? So you can see that those are the main problems that have been identified by the actual language technology developers. And they actually also asked users. So they did a survey on users who would use language technologies in their day-to-day work. And they also saw that because the offer is bigger for English, German, French, Spanish, also those languages are the ones that are more widely used in the day-to-day in language technologies, but the rest of the languages are not as used. So those were the conclusions of the analysis of the current state of play of language technologies in European languages. But within that project, within the LE project, they proposed a program, like an agenda, a strategy. You can find in the book a set of policies, a governance model, a set of technology and data recommendations, infrastructure recommendations, research recommendations, implementation recommendations, in order for Europe to be able to have language equality by 2030. One of the main aspects of that recommendation that you can actually read in the book is that a collaboration is needed between the EU, especially the European Commission, and all the participant countries and regions in Europe. They actually proposed a budget. I mean, they said, okay, with 840 million in the next years until 2032, with an overall EU investment, plus having national and regional countries as well investing between 20 and 50 million each, we think that we could get to language equality by 2030. And one of the main principles of this research strategy of this program is the idea of having language technologies made in Europe for Europe. And there is a big focus on openness. Currently, all the technologies that are available, that the big players have developed, they are black boxes. We don't know what's inside. We don't know how they have been trained. And the European strategy or the proposal of this project is to focus on openness, to develop technologies that are open source, that anyone can use, that anyone can integrate in their workflows, also to have open access and open standards, and to use also interoperable techniques and to use standardization so that these technologies can be widely spread across Europe. Those are the main ideas or the main founding blocks of the LE program and the LE strategy that is proposed in the LE book. So what has happened after that? The European Commission has taken that suggestion into account, that strategy into account, and has created a couple of initiatives. The first one is the European Language Data Space. This is part of the European strategy for data. Europe is building different data spaces, and this is one of those data spaces that is currently under development. Its development started in 2023, and it will finish by the end of the year. Probably it will extend maybe until mid next year, something like that. There is already a beta version, and this is a data space where data providers can provide the data, and language technology developers or technologists, people who want to use the data to develop technologies in the different European languages, they can liaise and they can exploit the data that the providers provide to develop technologies and put them in the market. So actually, broadcasters, you are a big source of data. You create content. You have content that you have generated many years behind, stored in your servers. And you could actually be very good providers for this European language data space. The data is never shared into the language data space. You only share metadata that describes the data that you have. And when a particular language technology developer is interested in using your data, then you write up a contract directly with that language technology developer. You agree a cost, you agree the terms of that contract directly with the data. But the European language space can be a place where you can share the data that you have, and you can put it at the service of the language technology developers in Europe so that they can develop language technologies for your languages or the regional languages that maybe don't have as much coverage by the big technological players. That's one of the initiatives. The other initiative has been the creation of the Alliance for Language Technologies, which is called ALT-EDIC. So this is a European Digital Infrastructure Consortium, which is a type of legal entity, a legal structure that has created the European Union that allows different member states to work together, to put funding, national funding together, to build something together at the European level. And this particular EDIC, the Alliance for Language Technology, it aims to support the development of language technologies. So this was created last year, and it is just launching at the moment. They are hiring people, and they have several projects that have just started in the last few months. One of the projects is the actual ALT EDIC for EU project. This project will allow the ALT EDIC to actually create the infrastructure that they need, to evaluate existing language technologies, to map the landscape of the different language technologies and large language models at EU level, to do training sessions, workshop events, etc., etc. The other project they have launched is LLMs for EU, which is, the aim is to make LLMs and tools available in EU languages in an open manner. So that openness that the LE strategy, the LE program was proposing is also part of the spirit of these projects that the ALTEDIC is financing. And the third project that they are funding is the Open Euro LLM project. This is a project that is also looking into developing foundation models, transparent models for all the European languages that are truly open, that can basically share the data they have been trained with, very well documented, so these developments can be replicated by other players in other regions. That it's compliant with EU regulation and that it's diverse, because it wants to preserve linguistic and cultural diversity in Europe. So these are the goals that the project is aiming to fulfill, but it has that open source, openness spirit that the LE project was proposing. And I'm going to finish just sharing a couple more of initiatives that are being carried out at the national and Spanish level and also at the regional levels. So on the one side, we have the ILENIA project, which is a national project that is trying to foster especially models, so multilingual text processing, voice processing, machine translation models in the different languages in Spain. And we also have 3 other regional projects, which are the AINA project in Catalonia for Catalan, the Ikergaitu project in the Basque Country for Basque, and the NOS project in Galicia for the Galician language, which are trying to develop technology models in those languages in Spain. And another initiative that was also created earlier this year is the Scorpora Association. This is a non-for-profit association that was created in the Basque Country, and so the Basque broadcaster EITB is a founding member of the association, together with Vicomtech, the research center that I represent, and it's an association that is looking to compile, to generate the corpus for the Basque language, that corpus that is currently in the servers of the Basque broadcasters, of Basque companies that do translations so that their online content is in Basque. So all that data, all that Basque data that is available but the companies have in their premises, this association is trying to pull it together and put it in an infrastructure that language technology developers can use to develop language technologies also for Basque, so that Basque is also one of the languages that is better supported with language technologies. And that is all I wanted to discuss today.
Thank you, Arantza. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was awesome. Arantza will be taking maybe a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can type your question for her. It was really interesting. Okay, what role can regional media play in generating linguistic corpora and data useful for these models?
I think they can play a crucial role, actually, because of what I was saying. You have lots of data, and that data is the basis for the development of language technologies. Speech recognition, translation, large language models that can be used to generate content. So without data, the technology cannot be generated. So all the data that you have and that you keep generating, I think, can be crucial in the development of language technologies for regional languages. Yeah.
What role can regional media play? Oh, it's the same one. Oh, no. What role can regional media play in generating linguistic corpora and data useful for these models?
Yeah.
And how are you dealing? Okay, there we are. How are you dealing with intellectual property of the contents broadcasters provide you with?
So currently, Scorpora is closing intellectual property agreements with the different data providers. There is an agreement underway with the Basque broadcaster at the moment, as I know. And the overall aim of the agreement is that the copyright of the original content is and will always be of the broadcaster. The data that the technology needs for the technological development is a derived version of that data. So for example, video is not required for language technologies, only the audio. Then the audio will need to be transcribed, and those transcriptions and the audio can be, if necessary, they can be anonymized so that personal data and information can be removed from the data. They can also be shuffled so that the data that is stored or that is used to develop technologies is not the actual content. There should not be, you shouldn't be afraid to have the data, to give the data to technology developers, because they will only use it in a derivative way, basically. So the agreements that CIRCOM is trying to close is the intellectual property of the original data is of the broadcaster, but then the derivative work on that data that needs to be done to develop the technology, that would be part of the association, and the language technology developers would be able to use that derivative data for commercial purposes as well.
Okay.
But the original copyright of the content remains with the broadcasters.
Okay. How necessary is to cooperate with commercial actors to help minor languages? Do you think is EU initiatives enough?
I think we need to play in both
ways, right?
Yeah. Actually, compiling data, so the data that would be compiled maybe in Corpora or in the European language data space, it is not clear yet, but maybe the big players can also use it so that their models can also be better in the regional languages. No? They are the ones that are making the technology get to our mobile phones, our day-to-day work. So I think, I don't know, maybe they need to pay more money than maybe local companies. That's the governance model of how the big players access the data, and maybe we can make it easier to local players. I don't know. That's something that has to be thought about, and it's not clear yet. But I think everyone who develops language technologies should be able to use the data. That would be better for everyone, I think.
Questions are piling up. I think this is a really interesting subject. For example, what is the minimum corpus that a minority language needs?
That's a very difficult question.
It's hard to tell, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's the scale of the data that is available for English is so big that, for example, the data that is available for Basque is 3 times less in scale. But with that, we have developed transcription systems that work well. It's difficult to know. I would say as much as possible, but probably with not as much data as what there is for English, we can do things that work well and can be useful in different applications.
This one is also really interesting. Do you see AI also playing a role moving forward in facilitating the learning of foreign languages, including the minor ones?
Yeah, of course. But in order to be able to do this with minor ones, we need the technology to work well.
And what does the EU study say about hyperlocal words? Is the EU trying to protect local culture, such as hyperlocal terms, like the ones that you can find in small rural areas?
They don't mention anything about this. Okay. But especially what we realize, for example, in the Basque Country, especially the oral tradition, is such that people who speak in a region of the Basque Country and in another region, the type of language that the spoken language that they use is different. So for speech recognition systems to be widely used, you need to actually get data that represents those audio, those terms, those hyperlocal terms, so that we are able to understand those people when they speak to machines. So I think this needs to be taken into account.
What can be the best way to help and support these initiatives by speakers' communities?
There are some initiatives like Common Voice that in some countries, for example, in the Basque Country, last year there was an initiative to get the speakers of Basque record voice in a website to get speech corpora for Basque to then be able to develop technology. So there are some initiatives that are trying to get also the final speakers involved. But I think to develop the best technologies, the type of data that is needed is gathering data that is already there. So it's getting content creators, it's getting companies that are already generating data, content in that language. Those are the ones that we will need to engage better than the final speaker communities, because it will take us more time to get enough data to develop the technologies.
So a double question and a hard one. Are you being able to create a sort of common skeleton to support all the minor, I guess it's a sort of common skeleton to support all the minor languages. How can you scale the tech platform to be competitive versus America?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I think what Europe is doing is saying, okay, no, in America we have all the big companies. They are investing money and they are wanting to get the money back from the market, and they are not taking into account all the languages in Europe. So in Europe, to develop the technology, the data is very important. So we are going to try to foster a place where everyone who wants to develop their languages in Europe can put the data of their language into that platform and try to engage local language technology developers, universities, technologists in Europe that can actually use that data to develop the technology. That's like the framework or the program or the strategy that Europe is trying to foster. It's going to be very difficult to see if that is going to be competitive against America. It's going to be very difficult to see. Probably, I don't know. So doing adaptations to probably the big companies don't have, or it's not maybe profitable for them to focus on some minor languages that don't have a market. So they probably won't dedicate a lot of time, but maybe a small local company is motivated to do that work. So I don't know. I think maybe it's a balance between both, and we will have to see case by case and language by language.
Okay, Terry, what does the research find about regional differences? In England, we worry about US versus UK English and dialect use of languages, particularly outside London.
Yeah, at the moment, those systems and technologies are not dealing with dialects and regional dialects. They are, you can only see one English. Well, for some technologies, for translation, for example, sometimes you can have different dialects of different languages. Probably, maybe this will come in the long term once the main languages are resolved.
And we have another comment from Deidre. TJ4 Iron is a member of the Alt-EDIC Alliance. The work will help ensure digital language equity for all the Irish language and for minority language PSM.
Okay, that's great. So I would...
Good for you.
Yeah, that's great. I would actually ask the rest of the broadcasters to also inform about the Alt-EDIC, the European Language Data Space, and see if you can also maybe support for your local languages, regional languages, minority languages, minor languages, because, that's the way to go.
Okay, so, wow. Thank you so much, Arantza, for your presentation and answering all these questions.